giants, is they? Human beings is not thinking we exist? Hello everyone, my name is Mark Jones, and I'm very excited to introduce to you one of my favorite authors, Roald Dahl. Behind me you can see some of his notable works, and I chose Roald Dahl because he was a true inspiration to me growing up, probably 9-10 years old, discovering some of his books and really enjoying it. And I try to overanalyze and thinking about fun words to use, but at the end of the day, their books really connected with me, and it was one of the major influences. And I think when we think back on our lives, these are authors that we should pay tribute to in our teaching and give to the world. So I'm really excited to maybe give you some more information about Roald Dahl, his background, some of his notable works, some of his quotes, which are very interesting, his motives behind writing children's literature, and I hope you enjoy this video. And I hope if you haven't heard of him or read any of his books, by the end of this video, you pick one up and enjoy it. Another really big influence in my life was the fantastic Mr. Fox. His antagonists in this book are three very abrasive farmers who want to take out the fantastic Mr. Fox. And if I read a quick quote from the book, you understand how some of the language he uses and how he describes the fantastic Mr. Fox. Did you hear that, Mr. Fox? It's not over yet. We're not going home till we've strung you up, dead as a dingbat. Pretty aggressive, and actually a lot of his critics believe some of his language was a bit violent for the youth. But it really put you in suspenseful moments, and you were really there rooting for Mr. Fox with these awful, the worst of the worst bad guys that are trying to get him. So here we go, and I hope you enjoy this. Who was Roald Dahl? Well, Roald Dahl was born in 1916 in Cardiff, Wales, to Norwegian parents, and he suffered some early trauma. He lost his dad to pneumonia quite early in his life, and his sister Astrid, who was only 3, to appendicitis. After this, it was just his mom raising their children, and he was shipped off to boarding school. And in boarding school, he later on explained he went through quite a lot more trauma, in that he was bullied, and he had a lot of male figures that were very conservative and authoritarian, and he often references them in some of his works. And it can be seen in his writing of kind of the most of the antagonists in his children's books are the adult figures who don't trust in the children and don't let them be kids, and you can definitely see this, and they can be related to his life experiences. After high school, he decided not to go to university, but he actually went on an expedition to Newfoundland. After that, he did a short work stint for Shell oil company in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. The World War II broke out, and he signed up for the Royal Air Force and became a pilot. And he had a pretty dramatic airplane crash, and he was shot down in Libya, and went on to be in the fight in the war for a few years. After that, he actually went to Washington D.C., part of the under the guise of being a Air Force intelligence officer, but in fact he was actually a spy, a British spy for Winston Churchill in America, in Washington D.C. Over there he met some influential writers. He was quite a socialite, as you can imagine some spies are, and that's when he was told to maybe write about some of his adventures in the war. And he started with adult literature to start with, writing about his experience in Libya and him being shot down. But then soon after that, he met his wife in America, and once they had children, and him started to tell them bedtime stories, he was inspired to write some of these bedtime stories. And it really started with his son being tragically hit by a taxi cab in New York City and suffering quite long-lasting the repercussions from the accident. Surviving, but Roald Dahl notably said it was a rough time in his life. Was inspired to write his first book, which was James and the Giant Peach. This one over here. And it's one of those classic children's literature books that you read about early on in elementary school. And this was his first. I'd like to read 2 quotes from Roald Dahl that really sum up his writing process. One being maybe a reason behind his dedication to children's literature and kind of backing children over adults most of the time. It's very interesting. I'm totally convinced that most grown-ups have completely forgotten what it is like to be a child between the ages of 5 and 10. I can remember exactly what it is like. I'm certain I can. That's kind of Dahl saying he has such an affinity to this time in his life, even though it was difficult, but being a child is so important. And he represents that so well in his books. He always as I said, he always backs the child, and the antagonists in most of his books are the adult figure. The next quote kind of allows us to dive into his writing process specifically. Sometimes it gives me a funny feeling that my writing arm is about 6,000 miles long, and that my hand that holds the pen is in fact somewhere in Central Africa, floating just above the treetops. This kind of tells you how can take himself away from this physical space and immerse himself in an imaginary place. In a lot of his books, the BFG, you go into a different dreamlike world. James the Giant Peach, you're inside a huge giant peach. You get taken into Willy Wonka's amazing chocolate factory, which is extraordinary and wonderful. So I think it just shows you how he can kind of detach himself from the space he's in and take you to a magical place. And one of his amazing abilities as a writer. They stood on the edge of the crater and stared down at Bogus and Bunce and Bean. "Hey, Bogus, what's going on?" "We're after a fox." "You must be mad." The people jeered and laughed. From the fantastic Mr. Fox. To conclude, I hope you enjoyed my video on Roald Dahl, and I hope you're inspired to read some of his books. He was a true inspiration to me, and his humor, his outlandishness, and the characters I got to meet were some of the reasons why I really adore Roald Dahl. See you guys. Bye.